So, it's that time of the year again. Christmas, Easter, all the holidays come together for watch nerds. Watches and Wonders is around the corner. And I'm going to make a super cheap video because, well, simply because other people do it way better than me. I think if you look at Luxify, if you're German speaking, or Revolution, Waco and his colleague, they did a phenomenal job at dissecting those two teasers that are out. And unfortunately, I think very much the initial leaks were actual leaks and not fakes. And they look to be true at this point. I think this is sad. It would be, in my opinion, nicer if we could just, have it airtight and no leaks at all. And then we see that teaser and we get to speculate and then, April 1st comes around. But long story short, the leaks that came out, I think for the most part, if not all, seem to be true. There's two teasers, as I just said before, and a lot of people go and search for patents and other stuff that have been filed by Rolex and also other brands. What we see in this first teaser here, if you see it right now, you see a very slim watch with a twin lock crown, and you also see, I'm not going to stop it, just going to let it run here. You also see part of the movement, which is very much in line with the speculation that Rolex is, bringing out a new movement. And this seems to be, I'm not an expert on those technicalities, but this seems to be, again, quoting Waco and friends, this seems to be a double wheel escapement, basically Rolex's own version of Breguet's natural escapement. And to make a long story very short, this is a very innovative way of managing the escapement in the watch, which has lots of different advantages. If it's really true what people speculate in this, because it uses silicone, because there will only be tangential friction, no sliding friction, this could be very much basically lubricant free. And I don't know whether that means that this doesn't even need to be serviced, or at the very least that service intervals would be much, much longer. And I mean, as of now already, I think they're pretty long with Rolex. So this is really, I think, if you look back at last year, it was a quiet release. People were sort of bored or disappointed with Rolex just swapping out colors on the bezels, introducing a black and gray bezel on the GMT, introducing plenty of different variations in the Daytona range, and lots of precious metal options to up the average selling price and increase their margins. This is really, again, going in a different direction. A lot of people expected this year to be a bigger release, and this really goes into the direction I think that a lot of people want to see, with Rolex really being the leader, being innovative and not just playing with colors. And if they do something, they might not be the first to do it, but if they do it, they usually do it right. And this is, again, their interpretation of a natural escapement. And this would be the first, as Waco said, industrially produced, so serially produced new escapement technology after Omega came out with the coaxial 26 or so years ago. So what we get pretty much is going to be a land dweller, which seems to be an integrated sports watch with this new bracelet that you see right now. It's an interpretation of a pre-existing bracelet that was used on the Oyster Quartz years ago. The watch also seems to be pretty thin. You also see the Siloxy hairspring here, which is Rolex's own silicone hairspring, but this has been in place for a while. And what you can just see that the color here of those two wheels in the escapement function there are the same color as the Siloxy hairspring. So this means that those wheels were probably silicone. So we'll get to see probably what the leaks already suggested, a land dweller, not a sea dweller, integrated sports watch with a new bracelet, a new interpretation of the bracelet. And one of the major questions was going to be, if you see that concealed clasp here, similar to the old Super Jubilee clasps or the current President bracelet clasps, whether or not you'll have a micro adjustment opportunity there. If you have it, or functionality rather. If you have that, that's really going to be next level. So this is the first thing that we're going to see. Now, going back to basically more of what happened last year, meaning new variations, new colors, and new precious metal options. And what you see here, you basically see a few things. Number one, apparently you'll see a yellow gold Oyster Flex Daytona. Well, that's not shocking so far, but probably with that very turquoise, as they call it, that Tiffany blue dial with the black subdials. This is very likely the first watch because it's pretty clear that it's a yellow gold Daytona and an Oyster Flex. The only thing that you can't see is the dial, so this will be probably the big differentiator there. That's number one. Number two, and this is actually also funny because it plays with what Tudor did with their chronograph versus the pink one, now with the turquoise blue or whatever they call it over there. And now they do this very similar thing with Rolex on the Rolex side. Now, this is supposed to be a new dial variation. People speculated with those holes, this could probably be diamond set. So that's probably they just stated we'll see that. That's the second one that's going to come. And then finally here you see parts of what appeared to be a Jubilee bracelet. And then you see a dress watch, which is probably Rolex's recently introduced dress watch. I just forgot the name, 1908 I think, I'm not sure. Not my favorite, but what someone pointed out is that if you look at the same trailer in the vertical format, you see that at the very end of the case, in the shot that's coming up right now, you would actually see that this dress watch case is mounted to a solid gold bracelet, which might be that very Jubilee bracelet that we see right now, which also appears to be a bit thinner than the one that you probably see on a GMT. Speaking of GMT, that's the next one coming up. You clearly see here another lefty black and green GMT, but if you look at the crown, there's a crown on the crown, and beneath that crown there are 3 dots. And if you have a small dot followed by a bigger dot followed by another small dot, this is going to mean that this will be a gold watch. Now this is obviously not yellow gold, it's also not rose gold, so that means by looking at this watch that this would be a white gold variation of the lefty GMT right here. And then finally, at the very end, you see what appears to be a small diameter Oyster Perpetual. If you look at the bracelet, which is all brushed, if you look at the clasp, which is not a twin lock clasp, I think is the right term. This very much looks like in Oyster Perpetual. It looks a bit thick, but that could just be the angle. And so what's going to be the differentiator there? Probably the dial, because everything else is already shown here, and it isn't really different from what we already know. So clearly what we can say now, a heavy hitting year compared to last year for Rolex, and lots of innovation also taking place. And this is just one brand. There's plenty of other brands obviously at Watches and Wonders exhibiting as well, or other brands having anniversaries this year. Think of Vacheron Constantin, you think of AP does a lot of stuff with the Royal Oak, just recently introduced their perpetual calendar, and they're obviously doing it on their own schedule because they're not part of the Watches and Wonders circus. Plenty of other brands exhibiting as well. Zenith, again, additional brands that are not part of the exhibition like Omega. So I think this year a lot of releases will be out. At the same time, you see that the demand is slowing down because of, amongst other parts, I want to say China. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this all develops. From what I've heard, I think Rolex, once again, is managing their supply in a very smart and sustainable long-term way, other than other brands that just try to keep pushing supply out, and ultimately which will lead to lower prices on the primary but also secondary market ultimately, because it cannot sustain their higher and higher retail prices. Anyway, this is again a video that's been going on for too long. I hope you nevertheless found it a bit useful. And on April 1st, Tuesday, 8 or 9 a.m. local time, we'll have the definitive view on things, and then we'll wait again for next Christmas 2026. Let me know what you think and take care. Bye bye.